Ladies and gentlemen, imagine a world of IKEA furniture, corporate drudgery, insomnia, and the quiet rage bubbling beneath the surface of consumer culture. Released on October 15, 1999, Fight Club is David Fincher's explosive, anarchic masterpiece, an adaptation of Chuck Palahniuk's 1996 novel that dissects masculinity, identity, capitalism, and self-destruction with razor-sharp satire and visceral energy. The film follows an unnamed narrator, Edward Norton, a disillusioned white-collar worker suffering from insomnia, who meets the charismatic, nihilistic Tyler Durden, Brad Pitt. Together they form underground fight clubs that evolve into Project Mayhem, a chaotic anti-materialist revolution. Helena Bonham Carter's Marla Singer adds chaotic romance, while a supporting ensemble of broken men and vivid cameos fills out the world of support groups, basements, and exploding buildings. Initially polarizing mixed reviews, box office disappointment of $37 million domestic on a $63 million budget, Fight Club became a cultural phenomenon, now hailed as one of the greatest films of the 1990s, with a devoted cult following, endless memes. The first rule of Fight Club, and themes that resonate even more sharply in the 21st century. It earned one Oscar nomination, Best Sound Effects Editing, but won hearts for its bold performances and Fincher's stylish direction. What elevates it? The cast: Brad Pitt's magnetic anarchy, Edward Norton's fractured psyche, Helena Bonham Carter's raw vulnerability, and a gallery of memorable supporting players who make the case feel painfully real. Tonight, we celebrate the standout cast members from your list, in order, exploring their lives, roles, and the indelible impact they had on this revolutionary film. The first rule is, we talk about Fight Club. Let's begin. Brad Pitt, Tyler Durden. The charismatic, shirtless destroyer of worlds, Brad Pitt as Tyler Durden, the enigmatic soap salesman, Fight Club founder, and alter ego of the narrator. In 1998 to 1999, Brad was 35 years old, born December 18, 1963. Already a superstar, Thelma and Louise, Interview with the Vampire, 7, he trained rigorously, losing weight, learning to fight, and embracing Tyler's anti-hero charisma. His performance is electric, seductive philosophy. You are not your job. You are not your khakis. Brutal physicality in fights, and a sly grin that hides deeper madness. The twist, that Tyler is the narrator's dissociative personality, makes his every line retroactively chilling. Behind the scenes, Pitt bulked up for shirtless scenes but slimmed down for the after. Look, he improvised lines like, "We're consumers. We're byproducts of a lifestyle obsession." Fincher praised his commitment. Brad was fearless. He wanted to go full anarchy. Awards. MTV Movie Award nomination. The film's cult status boosted his career. Snatch, Ocean Series, 2 Oscars. Best Supporting Actor 12 Years a Slave 2013, Best Actor Once Upon a Time in Hollywood 2019. Legacy. Tyler Durden became an icon and cautionary tale of toxic masculinity. Pitt's Tyler is magnetic danger, seductive, dangerous, unforgettable. Plus. Edward Norton, narrator/Tyler Durden. The fractured everyman, Edward Norton as the unnamed narrator, often called Jack in the script. The insomniac office drone whose split personality births Tyler. Edward was 29 to 30 years old, born August 18, 1969, turned 30 during filming. Fresh off Oscar nomination for Primal Fear, 1996, and acclaim in American History X, 1998, he brought quiet intensity and vulnerability to the narrator, insomnia-ravaged eyes, suppressed rage, and gradual unraveling. Anecdote: Norton rewrote parts of the script with Fincher's approval. His chemistry with Pitt was intense. He lost weight to contrast Tyler's physique. The final scene's line, "You met me at a very strange time in my life," is delivered with heartbreaking honesty. Awards. No nomination for this role, but it solidified his reputation for complex characters, Fight Club often cited in his top performances. Later, Oscar nomination for Birdman, 2014, activism, philanthropy. Legacy. Norton's narrator is the audience's mirror, alienated, searching, ultimately liberated. A masterclass in internal conflict. Meet Loaf, Robert Bob Paulson. The tragic, supportive giant, Meet Loaf, Marvin Leaday, as Robert Bob Paulson, the emotionally broken man with bitch tits from cancer treatments, who finds purpose in Fight Club. Meet Loaf was 42 years old, born September 27, 1947. A rock legend bat out of hell, he brought heartbreaking vulnerability. Bob's "We are the all-singing, all-dancing crap of the world" line is delivered with raw pain. Anecdote: Meat Loaf bonded with the cast. His death in 2022 at 74 made his name is Robert Paulson. Chance even more poignant. Legacy: Bob humanizes the club, showing men seeking connection amid emasculation. A standout supporting turn. Zach Granier, Richard Chesler, regional manager. The embodiment of corporate smugness, and the first real crack in the narrator's carefully constructed life. Zach Granier as Richard Chesler, the narrator's condescending regional manager at the insurance company who delivers the devastating line, "You're fired," after the narrator's explosive meltdown in the office. In 1998 to 1999, Zach was 44 to 45 years old, born 1954. By the late 1990s he was already a reliable character actor with a long resume of television work, recurring roles on LA Law, Murphy Brown, The X-Files, and film appearances. Fight Club came right after his turn in the game, 1997. With Michael Douglas and David Fincher. Fincher cast him again because of Zach's ability to project quiet, oily authority, exactly what was needed for a man who represents everything the narrator is trying to escape. Chesler's scenes are brief but pivotal, the cold open where he lectures the narrator about expense reports. "The things you own end up owning you," is the philosophy Tyler will later weaponize against men like Chesler. And the firing scene where he smugly says, "You're very, very clever," before security escorts the narrator out. Zach plays it with a thin veneer of politeness over contempt. His slight smirk, the way he leans back in his chair, the precise enunciation of corporate speak, makes Chesler instantly hateable and instantly recognizable. He is the face of the system the film is dismantling. Behind the scenes, Zach has spoken in interviews about how Fincher encouraged the cast to lean into the absurdity of corporate life. The office set was deliberately sterile, fluorescent lights, beige walls, identical cubicles, to mirror the narrator's emotional numbness. Zach improvised small physical tics, adjusting his tie, glancing at his watch, that made Chesler feel like every bad boss you've ever had. Legacy. After Fight Club, Zach continued a prolific career in television, 24 as a recurring villain, The Good Wife as a judge, Mindhunter as a forensic psychologist, and film, Zodiac, also with Fincher. He remains one of the most dependable authority figure with a dark edge. Actors working today. In Fight Club, Chesler is the perfect symbol of the emasculating corporate machine, the first domino that falls before the entire system collapses. Richmond Arquette, intern at hospital. The young, awkward medical intern who unwittingly becomes part of the narrator's insomnia-fueled deception. Richmond Arquette as the hospital intern who signs off on the narrator's fake illnesses so he can attend support groups. Richmond was 35 to 36 years old during filming, born August 21, 1963. He comes from one of Hollywood's most famous acting dynasties, the Arquette family, brother of Patricia, Rosanna, and David Arquette, son of Louis Arquette, grandson of Cliff Arquette, Charlie Weaver on Hollywood Squares. By 1999, Richmond had already built a solid resume of character roles in independent films and TV, The Doomed Generation, The Wedding Singer, Say 7N, often playing nervous, slightly off-kilter young men. In Fight Club, his scene is short but crucial. The narrator shows up at the hospital with self-inflicted chemical burns, and the intern, wide-eyed, stammering, clearly uncomfortable, writes the prescription that allows the narrator to keep attending support groups. Richmond plays the intern with perfect discomfort, hesitant voice, averted eyes, the sense that he knows something is wrong but is too junior, or too timid, to push back. It's a small moment, but it underscores the narrator's growing manipulation of the system. Behind the scenes. Richmond has mentioned in interviews that Fincher shot the hospital scenes quickly, but encouraged the actors to play the awkwardness realistically. Like you're actually dealing with a crazy person who's burning himself on purpose. The chemical burn makeup, created by the same team that did the later explosions, was so convincing that crew members winced during takes. Legacy. Richmond continued working steadily in film and television, Zodiac again with Fincher, the Doom Generation cult following, guest spots on CSI Medium. He also became known outside acting for his openness about family dynamics and his own struggles with addiction. In Fight Club, his intern is a perfect microcosm of the film's theme: ordinary people caught in the orbit of someone who has already started to break. David Andrews, Thomas at Remaining Men Together. The emotionally shattered testicular cancer survivor, David Andrews as Thomas, the gentle, broken man in the Remaining Men Together support group who shares his story of losing his testicles to cancer and finding comfort in the group hugs. David was 46 to 47 years old, born 1952. A veteran character actor with a long list of credits, Terminator 3. Rise of the Machines as General Robert Brewster, Jag as Admiral Chegwin, The X-Files, Man and Machine. David brought quiet dignity and heartbreaking vulnerability to Thomas. His monologue, "I got the feeling that my testicles were shrinking, and then they were gone," is delivered with such raw honesty that it becomes one of the most memorable moments in the support group montage. The scene is pivotal. It's the first time we see the narrator cry genuine tears, not crocodile tears for sympathy. Never exploitative, always human. Legacy. David continued a strong career in television and film, The Lincoln Lawyer, Lost, Band of Brothers. In Fight Club, Thomas is one of the few genuinely sympathetic figures, a reminder that beneath the satire, the film is also about real pain and the search for belonging. George Maguire, group leader Remaining Men Together. The calm, well-meaning facilitator. George Maguire as the unnamed group leader of the Remaining Men Together testicular cancer support group. George was in his late 40s to early 50s during filming, exact birth date not widely publicized. A character actor with a long history in television, ER, NYPD Blue, The Practice, George plays the leader with gentle authority and practiced empathy, welcoming the narrator, leading the "We're still men" chant, and trying to keep the group focused despite the raw emotion in the room. His performance is understated but essential. He represents the well-intentioned but ultimately powerless institutional response to suffering. When Thomas hugs the narrator and the room erupts in tears, the leader's quiet "Let it out" feels both compassionate and futile. Behind the scenes, the support group scenes were shot in a real community center in Los Angeles. George has recalled that Fincher kept the set very quiet between takes to maintain the intimate, almost sacred atmosphere. Legacy. George continued working in episodic television and smaller film roles. In Fight Club, his group leader is a small but perfectly observed portrait of therapeutic bureaucracy, trying to heal, but unable to stop the deeper chaos that's coming. Eugenie Bondurant, Weeping Woman Onward and Upward. The raw grief of terminal illness, Eugenie Bondurant as the unnamed weeping woman in the Onward and Upward melanoma support group. Eugenie was in her late 30s during filming, born 1964. A character actress with a background in theater and television, The X-Files, CSI Bones, she delivers one of the most emotionally naked moments in the film, sobbing uncontrollably as she describes her cancer and her fear of dying alone. Her breakdown is so visceral that it forces the narrator, and the audience, to confront real mortality amid the film's dark comedy. Behind the scenes. Eugenie has said in interviews that Fincher asked the actors in the support group scenes to tap into genuine emotion rather than act grief. She drew from personal losses to find the rawness. Her performance was so powerful that several takes ended with real tears from other cast members. Legacy: Eugenie continued appearing in television and independent films. In Fight Club, her weeping woman is a stark reminder that the support groups are not just satire, they contain real human suffering that the narrator exploits, and that Tyler will later dismiss. Christina Cabot, leader partners in positivity. The aggressively upbeat facilitator. Christina Cabot is the leader of the Partners in Positivity support group. Christina was in her early 30s, born 1966. A theater-trained actress with credits in The West Wing, Boston Legal, and stage work, she plays the role with exaggerated cheerfulness, clapping, smiling too wide, insisting that today is a gift, which makes the narrator's intrusion feel even more cynical. Her scene is short but sharp. She represents the forced positivity of self-help culture, the kind of superficial healing the narrator mocks. Her bubbly tone contrasts brutally with the narrator's inner emptiness. Behind the scenes, Christina has spoken about how Fincher wanted the positivity leader to feel like a caricature of 1990s New Age optimism, hence the over-the-top enthusiasm. Legacy: Christina continued in television and theater. In Fight Club, she perfectly embodies the film's critique of shallow wellness culture. Plus, Helena Bonham Carter, Marla Singer. The chaotic, chain-smoking, gloriously unhinged anti-heroine, Helena Bonham Carter as Marla Singer, the cynical, self-destructive woman who crashes support groups, sleeps with the narrator, and Tyler, and becomes the emotional center of the film's madness. Helena was 32 to 33 years old, born May 26, 1966. Already known for period dramas, A Room with a View, Howard's End, and eccentric roles, The Wings of the Dove, she leapt at Marla, dyeing her hair dark, wearing thrift store clothes, smoking constantly, and delivering lines with a smoky rasp and fearless sexuality. "I haven't been fucked like that since grade school," remains one of the most quoted lines in 1990 cinema. Anecdotes: Helena improvised several lines. She and Edward Norton developed intense chemistry. While her scenes with Pitt were deliberately uncomfortable, Fincher wanted Marla to feel like a walking contradiction, sexy, repulsive, broken, alive. Helena later called Marla a filthy, wonderful mess, and said playing her was liberating after years of corsets and propriety. Legacy: no Oscar nomination for this role. The film's only nod was for sound effects editing, but Marla is one of her most iconic characters. Later roles in Harry Potter, Bellatrix, The King's Speech, The Crown, Sweeney Todd, and Fight Club cemented her as one of the most fearless actresses of her generation. Helena's Marla is raw, unapologetic, sexually liberated, emotionally damaged, and utterly unforgettable, the perfect counterpoint to Tyler's nihilism and the narrator's repression. Sidney Big Dog Colston, speaker free and clear. The recovering addict with genuine pain. Sidney Big Dog Colston as the speaker in the Free and Clear addiction support group. Sidney was in his 40s during filming, exact birth date not widely documented. A character actor with a background in theater and small film roles, he delivers a heartfelt, almost poetic monologue about hitting rock bottom and finding clarity. His deep voice and weary eyes make the moment feel authentic amid the satire. Behind the scenes, Fincher cast non-actors and real support group participants in some scenes for realism. Sidney's performance was praised for feeling lived in rather than acted. Legacy: Sidney continued in smaller roles and voice work. In Fight Club, his speaker adds a layer of sincerity that makes the narrator's exploitation feel even more cruel. Rachel Singer, Chloe. The dying woman who propositions the narrator, Rachel Singer as Chloe, the melanoma patient in the Onward and Upward group who bluntly asks the narrator for sex because "I'm dying." Rachel was in her late 30s to early 40s, born 1960s. A theater and television actress, The West Wing, CSI. Her Chloe is heartbreaking, desperate, blunt, and tragically honest. Her line, "I haven't had sex in 6 months," and the narrator's panicked refusal are both funny and devastating. Behind the scenes, Rachel has spoken about how Fincher wanted Chloe to feel like a real person facing mortality. No glamour, just raw need. Her performance makes the support group's satire sting. Legacy: Rachel continued in episodic television. Chloe remains one of the film's most poignant supporting characters. A reminder of mortality amid the chaos. Christy Cronenweth, airline check-in attendant. The polite face of corporate travel, Christina Cronenweth, often credited as Christy, as the airline check-in attendant who upgrades the narrator's ticket after he loses his luggage and his identity. Christina was in her late 20s, daughter of legendary cinematographer Jeff Cronenweth, who shot Blade Runner and several Fincher films. Her small role is crisp and professional. Exactly the kind of anonymous service worker the narrator once was. Behind the scenes, her father shot the film, making this a family affair. The scene was shot on location at Los Angeles International Airport. Legacy: Christina later worked behind the camera and in production. Her brief appearance adds texture to the film's critique of impersonal modern life. Tim Desarn, Federated Motor Company. Inspector Byrd. The stern investigator, Tim Desarn, credited as Tim Desarn, as Inspector Byrd, one of the two Federated Motor Company inspectors who confront the narrator about the exploding cars. Tim was in his late 30s to early 40s, born 1960s. A prolific character actor, The X-Files, Star Trek, Voyager, The Shield, he plays Byrd with cold authority. His "You are fired" echo of Chesler's line is no coincidence. Behind the scenes. The recall scene was shot in a real industrial space. Tim's deadpan delivery made the threat feel bureaucratic and terrifying. Legacy: Tim has continued a strong career in television and film. In Fight Club, he represents the system fighting back, before it's too late. Ezra Buzzington, Inspector Dent. The second inspector, Ezra Buzzington as Inspector Dent, the partner to Byrd in the car recall investigation. Ezra was in his late 30s, born 1960s. Known for eccentric roles, The Hills Have Eyes, The Prestige, he plays Dent with quiet menace and dry humor. His line, "We're gonna have to ask you some questions," is delivered with perfect deadpan. Behind the scenes, Ezra has said Fincher encouraged the inspectors to feel like corporate hitmen in suits. Legacy: Ezra remains a favorite of genre fans. In Fight Club, Dent is the calm before the storm, the last gasp of order. Deirdre Downing-Jackson, businesswoman on plane. The anonymous traveler, Deirdre Downing-Jackson as the businesswoman sitting next to the narrator on the plane. Deirdre was in her 40s. Her brief scene, polite small talk while the narrator stares blankly, adds to the film's portrait of alienation in transit. Legacy: small role, but perfectly observed. Bob Stevenson, airport security officer, as Robert Paulson. The security guard Bob Stevenson as the airport security officer who stops the narrator, and later becomes one of the Robert Paulsons. Bob was in his 30s, born 1967. Known for Breaking Bad, Seinfeld, he plays the guard with calm authority. His "Sir, you can't take that on the plane" line is delivered with bureaucratic finality. Legacy: Bob has a long career in comedy and drama. In Fight Club, he's another faceless cog in the machine. Charlie Dell, doorman at Pearson Towers. The polite doorman, Charlie Dell as the doorman at the luxury building where Tyler and the narrator live. Charlie was in his 50s to 60s, born 1930s, 1940s. A veteran character actor, his brief role, greeting the narrator with cheerful deference, highlights the absurdity of Tyler's squat in a high-rise. Legacy: Charlie appeared in many films and TV shows. In Fight Club, he represents the old-world courtesy that Project Mayhem will soon destroy. As the buildings crumble and the narrator holds Marla's hand watching the skyline explode, we are left with the film's haunting question: who are we when we strip away the furniture, the job, the name? Fight Club endures because it dares to confront the emptiness of modern life. With Brad Pitt's seductive anarchy, Edward Norton's fractured soul, Helena Bonham Carter's raw defiance, meet Loaf's tragic heart, and every supporting player who makes the chaos feel lived in and real. 25 years later, as of 2025, it remains provocative, quotable, and uncomfortably relevant, a warning about rage, identity, and the cost of rebellion. Thank you for joining this deep dive into one of cinema's most explosive films. Like, share, subscribe, rewatch it soon. Feel the first punch, hear the rules, and question everything. The first rule of Fight Club is that it still hits hard. Good night.